Hi there. In this video, I hope to demonstrate a bit about formulas and functions in Excel. And this will be like a starter session. Maybe I'll touch on the if statement also, if function in Excel. And this data that you see right now, it's just very typical employee data. It is bogus. It is fake data. It doesn't represent any company or any organization at all. It's just really fake data just for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay, so we have last name, job code, hire date, birth date, typical employee data, HR data, annual salary, pay type, job status. So that's what it is. So to insert a formula in Excel, basically, you have options right from the home tab. Very simple calculations that people need to do. Typically, in a business and in a work setting, you can find those on the home tab here very easily. If you look at the Sigma icon, the Sigma sign over here, uh, this one, it gives you an option very easily, very quickly. If you need to do a calculation, for example, of how much annual salary is paid every year in this particular company, you can easily come here at the bottom, and then let me pin this down. Always show ribbon. Okay, so now it's pinned. All right, so I can come here easily and I can click on the Sigma by itself. When I click on the Sigma, you can see it inserts a subtotal function over here very quickly, very easily. Gives me a sum of everything, of all the annual salary in this company. That's one thing. I can also easily do this. I could have come here and specified exactly what I want to do. Sum, same thing. It will give me the same thing. I can undo this and come here and say I want to calculate an average, the average of all the salaries. I want to count how many salaries are being paid. So that'll be a count of all the numbers. We can use the max function here to find the person who earns the highest salary on the minimum function here to show the person who earns the least salary. Yeah. So that's one way you can insert functions. If you need more functions, see, it says here, click here, more functions. It brings you over here. And then you can search for what you're looking for and pick up a function from there. That's one way. Look at this also. The formula option tab here shows you a library of all your functions, and they are categorized and grouped. So you can see financial functions, logical functions, text functions, that's a lot, date and time, lookup and reference, math and trigonometry, and then more functions. Everything exists on this. There's a lot to go over here. All right. Again, you have that option which shows you the more common, mostly used, the mostly used functions generally over here. All right. Generally speaking, if you want to write a function in Excel, what happens is if you type in the equal to sign, that's an indication that what you're trying to do next is to insert a function. Just the equal to sign. You can see it here. If you look at this window over here, if I remove I'm going to remove the equal to sign, check out. This is not alive. It doesn't come alive. But when I come here and I type in the equal to sign, you can see all of this comes alive. They come alive easily. And also, you can also come here, pick a cell. If I'm going to write my function here, I can easily come here and click on the FX icon over here, and it shows me this option where I can go and search for something. I can give a brief description of what I'm looking for and then do a search. I can select functions from here also. I can use the categorization also to look for references I'm looking for. I can easily come here and search for, I can say maybe text. And then it's going to find something that matches, that's close to what I'm looking for me. Right. So that's the way you can insert a function to start off very quickly in Excel. So what else? So that's going to be very useful. Knowing all that's going to be very useful for us. So you should be able to search through your functions and pick up stuff that you want to pick up. So let me demonstrate for you the very most basic function that you can use, generally speaking, and that will be the if function. The if function is very important, and very important to programming generally, very important in Excel also. So the if function functions like this pretty much. If it has a logic to it, it's very simple logic, and it has 3 arguments. So if I say here, I'm typing the if function over here, And the moment I start typing, it begins to suggest options for me. So with the if function, that is, you have the first function, which is the if function itself. Then you have the if error function, which means if there's an error in your formula, do that. And then you have the if and a not available is also another option. And then you have the ifs option with an S, which means you have multiple ifs, something like that. All right, so let's deal with the first one. That's the one I'm interested in right now. So I can come here, and when I tab away, it inserts a bracket for it, which means I can now start to type uh, uh, my function fully. Now, the if function functions, it works basically in a very simple logic. So it takes a condition. So it has three arguments. The if function has three arguments. The first argument is the logical test. The second argument is the value if the logical test is true. The third argument is the value if the logical test is false, if it's not true. So in other words, let me give you a quick example. If I'm thinking of a city, if I'm thinking of a city, and the city, let's do it this way. If city is New York, if the name of a city is New York, then you know that the country, if it is true, that so the city being New York, that's a logical test. Is it true that it is New York? Yes. Then the country is USA. That is the true argument. And then the last argument is if it is not New York, that's when it is false. If the city is not New York, then it is not the USA. I hope you see it. Very simple argument, very simple logic. If the city is New York, then the country is USA. Otherwise, if the city is not New York, then it is definitely not the US. I hope you see it. So let me go back to that function and see if I can write it here. If it has three arguments, uh, the logical test is what I'm writing next. That's the first argument. And then you have the value if it is true and value if it is false. So you can come here easily and click on the FX icon over here. It gives you a better view of what you're doing. So you can use this very easily. So let me write a real one. I'm going to insert a column in here. Let's I'm going to insert a column over here. Column to the right. I want one column to the right. Insert. Okay. So I'm going to call this province. All right. Let's call that field province. And I'm going to do a logical test here. And I'm going to say, let's write it this way. If I'm going to click on the FX icon over here. So it's more clear to me what I'm doing. I'm going to say if I'm going to pick on this particular cell. If G2, cell G2, which is this one, cell G2, this is column G, cell column G, row number 2. This is row number 2, and the column is column G. So it's G2. If, oh no, that's not what I want to do. If G2, which means Toronto in this case, is equal to Toronto, I'm going to put Toronto in double quotes because it is a text field and not a number field. A number field will not need double quotes. So that's the logical test. Is G2 Toronto? That's the question. Is G2 equal Toronto? Now, if G2 is equal Toronto, then I'm going to say the province is Ontario. All right. If the value is not Toronto, if the logical test is not Toronto, then I'm going to just type this in for now. I'm going to say not Ontario. The province is definitely not Ontario. Okay. So I'm going to say, okay. So right now, I see the value if it is true. It's telling me it is true. The value if it is true is Ontario. The value if it's not true is not Ontario. So you can see the resolution here. Not Ontario is the result. But the final result of the function is that the province is Ontario. This is the final result. Okay. So if I say okay, you can see it here. Toronto, This location is Toronto. The province is Ontario. Vancouver, it is not Ontario. Winnipeg, it is not Ontario. Toronto, it is not Ontario. I mean, it is Ontario. So because my data is in a table, so everything is filled up immediately. I hit enter. So I hope you see what I'm saying. So the logical test is this again. Look at the logical test. Is the city Toronto? Yes, the city is Toronto. Then the province is Ontario. If it is not Toronto in the next fields, then write not Ontario. So it's very, very simple logic, very, very straightforward. And that is how to insert an if function very quickly, very easily. Now, I can insert more functions in here. If I can come here to my this if function, I can add other functions to it. In other words, I can I can nest other if functions into it so that it meets the need to fill up other provinces for other cities here. So I can easily come here and say if, so right now, if G2 is Toronto, then it's Ontario, this province is Ontario. I can come here and write another if statement and say if G2 is Vancouver, close the bracket, then the province is British Columbia. And I can leave it like this. I'm going to need to close, one more bracket to close. Okay. And when I hit it, oh, no, that's not working right now. British Columbia, I should say that. And it should be in double quotes also. Should be working. So now it's working. So it's a nested if statement. If the city is Toronto, if the location is Toronto, then print Ontario. Otherwise, if it is Vancouver, print British Columbia. That's what's happening to the data right now. So otherwise, if none of it is true, if it is not Vancouver, if it is not Toronto, then just write not Ontario, and I can say not British Columbia. I can add that to it. So it's a nested if statement. It's an if statement within an if statement. All right, I'm going to continue this in the next video. To you soon.